20% of the GDP for US is pharma. In my first semester, if I don't perform in this manner, I will be thrown out. Just show your passion. I think they mold rules for you. They change all the rules that are there.
How did the idea of your current company come to you?
There is something called angel investors. That, you can get money like that. You can pitch your idea.
And I think it's our time to shine now, because all the things that were holding us back are no longer holding us back.
India is the brightest spot right now in the economy also, right? IMF just published the article where they're saying that the chances for recession in India is 0, while in US is 65%, Canada is 60%.
How is the tech that you are working on, the AI?
So now we get millions and millions of this claims data from data sources, and we analyze the entire claim, all these claims. So that's where the neural network and the algorithms gets into the picture, right?
Hey everyone, this is Shruti. Welcome to my podcast, I'm Just Curious, where I talk of all things I'm curious about with the people I'm curious about and how they turn their passion into their profession. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking to someone who I have known since college days, who's doing amazing work in the field of pharma, and we couldn't be more proud. And so I'm very excited to welcome Badal with me on the podcast today. Hi Badal, how are you doing?
Hey Shruti, long time.
Yes, very long indeed. So, how have you been?
It's awesome. How are you? It has been, I would say 10 years now, more than that, right?
I'm never good at maths, but yeah, if you say, I'll take it like 10 years.
It has been 10 years. It's interesting. Yeah. Yes.
So how are things? How have you been doing? Like, how are things going?
It's amazing. I think it's a very exciting time right now with the whole AI thing that is blooming, how we can adapt that to the pharma world, because pharma has been always very behind in this kind of adapting to new changes or new technology advancements. So this is really very interesting. It's a huge opportunity for kids. And again, we are going to discuss more on that particular part, but that's a huge opportunity for kids to expand that particular part. And on personal side, I was just blessed with a baby boy. So that's a lot of adventure.
Yeah. Congratulations. I didn't know, but
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. And so like you said, let's start from the beginning. Did you always wanted to study science or pharma, or did it just happen?
So I think in India, it's pretty much right, like how you're cultivated. Your mind is cultivated into one direction, right? So if you're very good in studies, science is the only option that you get. Now things have changed, but that was how it was, right? Like, and even my father was an engineer. So that was the whole home culture that, okay, science is the only option that you have. That's no other option. So science was pretty much on that side of the thing. So, and anyways, I was good in math and science. So that just happened kind of, I would say, programmatically, or I was cultivated to go in that direction. So I didn't have that option of even thinking about arts or commerce. So separate conversation on that. Pharmacy, I would say, it's more of like another way of how Indian education system is. And we can get into whether it's good or bad, but it's about like that if you are good in something, especially when I got in 10th, it was 90%, and you're in English medium, you know that languages have issues. So when you get that kind of things, you always about, medical. So that was more of like, even though I was good at math, I opted for biology. And then, of course, pharmacy was more of an option that was left.
Right. Interesting. So, what sparked your curiosity for the subject? Like you said that it just happened. What was it about? What was about it that was so exciting to you that you kept on with it for so many years? Unlike many of us.
I think one thing that really sparked was pharmacology. So I would not say the entire pharmacy was something that was driving me, but pharmacology was a subject that drew me a lot. Like anything that related to how chemicals are able to make changes in your body and how it can be life-saving. Especially I saw my grandfather, my mom's father, who was suffering from cancer in my early days. So I knew that particular part, that how important it is to have advancement in medicine, especially in country like India, to have that level of understanding, because of course there are a lot of issues that were happening. You don't know what's happening. Doctors were saying one thing or the other thing. So you know the complications, and we always have that particular kind of feeling that at least if you have one person who understands that in the family, it becomes much more easier. So that already drew my attention a lot on that side of the thing. So I would say the pharmacology side of the section was something that drew me from the first day. Yeah, of course. Then there were like pharmaceutical engineering and all of the other things, which was kind of a lot of issues for me, which I never wanted to go into that sort of thing. So,
Really?
uh, yes, mine was always pharmacology. I was always wanted to get into the drug discovery, whole drug development, how we can reduce the burden of disease for
Yeah.
patients. So that was always my focus and my liking. And I think that came naturally from the first day I joined pharmacy school.
Yeah. I think like this very surprisingly, weirdly, we have that thing in common. I never knew that, you didn't like pharmaceutical engineering. And
Oh, I hated it.
I like hate it with every cell in my body. Like,
I know. And again, I should not be saying it because there are a lot of people who liked it, but this is again just to make it very clear, it was just my personal
yeah, yeah,
kind of thing because I I I felt that if you're doing pharmacy, I always wanted to get into that side of the things with of how organic chemistry or the chemistry of medications is impacting your body, right? So of course, pharmaceutical engineering is is also something that is amazing, especially for India. I would say that
yeah.
now there is a huge opportunity where, of course, our prime minister announced that it's going to be the pharmacy of the world. AI
Hmm.
automation in engineering or in machineries is going to be the next wave for India where they can really build. We saw that for vaccines, but how you can create or manufacture in an automated way is going to be the future for kids in India who wants to pursue pharmacy. So I said, yeah, it's a very
Booming.
amazing subject,
Very.
but I think we were not we. I think the way it was being taught was not in the right manner. I felt it became very much monotonous and nothing in terms of the application of how you can advance
Hmm.
or adopt some of the advancement in the technology was not happening. So it became very boring for personally for me.
Yeah, no, but I agree. I feel I completely agree. Even with not just pharmaceutical engineering, I agree with the fact that for me, pharmacology was the subject that kept me going, and even
Yes.
biochemistry. I still sometimes feel like I want to draw those structures and like
Yes.
molecules and those cycles and everything. It just still fascinates me, and I want to still explore
Yeah.
the subject. But I also get that that's the only thing that kept me going, that subject. But I agree, like, if, like you said, if the education system, if things were not taught in a very theoretical manner, people who were not interested in other subjects would take interest. And you never know, they could to get something out of it, they could make something out of it. So I completely agree with that.
Yes. I think there are pros and cons of our education system, the way it is done. So personally, my feeling is that theoretical knowledge and getting your core concepts very clear and making it like a lot more clearer every single point theoretically is very important, and that's what India does very well in the Indian education system.
You were inclined towards pharmacology and subjects like these, and then you were very sure that you wanted to. Now it's very ironic that you were interested in pharmacology, but now you work in the sector of tech and AI, and it's related.
True.
Like, yeah, it's
Yes, but again, I've always mentioned that I had a huge inclination towards math that drove
okay.
me towards data,
Okay.
and that was a niche that I saw that there was a gap that we have in the industry where the entire other industries like finance, many other industries were adopting technologies and advancement so easily to really make a huge change in the overall output. Where pharma, because of the conventional way it was going, and people who didn't had the kind of knowledge on both the sides of the aisle, it was lagging a lot. I would say it was 20 years behind, and that too I'm talking in US. It was 20 year. It is still 20 year behind in
Oh.
terms of adopting some of the technologies that other industries have adopted very very easily. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I saw a huge gap where in pharma you need it because that any particular advancement that you do here, it directly impacts the patients. It directly impacts their livelihood. So that becomes a huge importance of how you can combine two things to make a huge difference for the overall drug discovery and development process.
True. So as a but like a college going kid, How do you
Yes.
figure out that, that, oh, I want to go to the US? And like, was there like a big long term goal that you already had in mind? Or was it like, okay, I'll explore this subject and let's see what comes out of it? And then we can go on to the education system and everything as well.
I think it was the negative. I should not say that, but it was kind of that, where in India, when we were in the first or the second year of the pharmacy, there was a negation that happened that, there is nothing going on right now in India. Because though even India was manufacturing so much of generic medications, it was all about that there is no, either you become an MR or you go into more of like manufacturing, and honestly, your work can be done by a BSc or MSc kind of student. So you never had that, okay, if you are a pharmacy, you can do this particular things, right? And again, it's changing completely. So I'm not saying it, but that was what I was exposed to at that point of time, that this is what is happening to our seniors and this is what is being happening overall in India.
No, I
So
completely
that honestly drew.
Yeah, sorry
Yeah,
to
go ahead, sorry.
I completely agree with that, because even like, I agree that there was no scope, or there was no such exciting job opportunities that were like very that excited people, or that, they were like aspiring to enter into. So I completely agree with that. Yeah, continue. You
Yeah.
was
And yes, and I didn't want to do M-Pharm for sure, because I really wanted to do something which was a combination of business, because I had that drive right from the beginning. So I wanted to start something of my own. Didn't know how to do it. So that was another exposure that I wanted. And the other thing is that I was every Indian kid, how they're spoiled, especially in Gujarat. They're spoiled. They're with their parents. You've never left the house. You are not exposed to
everything is
the
done.
whole.
Everything is
Exactly.
given on to you on a platter. Everything is served.
And you're ungrateful. So you're not graciously accepting it. This is something that you feel that you're entitled
Yeah.
to get this. So that was one. I would not say that drove me, but I knew that there is something that I'm missing. I wanted to see and explore how I would survive without that kind of support that you have. So that honestly drove me to go to US and see, of course, what is the scope, like how I can expand, because I knew that US is the place where most of the drug discovery is happening. Till date, 80% of the discoveries that happen, new molecules that are being found, are in US. So that honestly drove me. I think we forget that we talk a lot about defense when we talk about US, but 20% of the GDP for US is pharma, which is the highest for any industry. So that is something that shows that one of the biggest economies in the world, 20% is from pharma. So that is huge thing. So that drove me honestly to get to US and explore. So I didn't have like a game plan or, okay, this is what I want to do. It was more of like the lack of scope in India, which I was exposed to, and then the scope that I was seeing in US, the greener side of the other, when you always feel the other side is always greener. Yes. So that just drove me there.
But very interesting. I always have to say this, that I've always seen you, even in college, like, I've seen this clarity in you, like this, then clarity, not in the sense of that, oh, everything's clear, but like in the sense of weighing things, like, like how people have those charts where if this, if that, that, like the way you spoke right now, it reminded me of that, like, what if chart, like if this happens, do this, if this happens, like how you said that, this lack of scope made you want to go to the US and everything. But once you finished your masters, once, like, you were like, okay, I've come here, I've studied, and what was what did you pursue in terms of
so my master's, so I wanted the combination of it. So another thing, as you mentioned, you're from middle class, right? You're very from a humble background, so you didn't want to do something where again, MBA at that point of time was something which was like, you have to do it. Whatever you do, you have to do an MBA. And of course, studying in US from being your family is from India, so it becomes very difficult. So I wanted to do something which is combination, where I don't have to do another master's and spend another $50,000-$70,000, which is like around 30-40 lakhs, which is a lot of money.
And plus, invest again that kind of time into.
Exactly. It's crazy. So I opted for a combination of course, which is called Masters of Business and Science in Drug Discovery and Development.
Oh, wow.
So it was a very unique program where it's called as a professional science master's program. they literally create managers where they can have both the technological knowledge as well as the business knowledge. So they can combine both of it and they can apply that as soon as they get out of the program. So that was something that I did a lot of research, and I thought that this is the perfect program that I can get into. That's a story that they only take students who have at least 2 years of experience. But I know I had like, so I was rejected from that program, and then I kept on calling them, and around 18, 19 calls that I did to the program directors. And I was like, just try me once. So I was the only person who got a conditional I-20. What that means is that they put a condition on me that after I come here in my first semester, if I don't perform in this manner, I will be thrown out.
Oh,
But yeah, because they were tired of my picking up my calls. They
yeah, yeah.
rejected me first, and I kept on calling them. I was like,
Very
try
adamant
me.
that you kept that.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to waste any of my years. So this is something that they usually take people who have done bachelor's, and that too 2 years after the bachelor's in professional capacity that they have done in any of the pharma or any places. I was the one who was still in the fourth year, and I got that with them. So yeah, that was. But again, as in US, that's one thing that if they see a passion in you, they mold all the rules, and that's why I tell all. Again, right now I'm also in the industrial advisory board member for Rutgers University, and I tell students, international students, the students that I interact on a regular basis, that just show your passion. I think they mold rules for you. They change all the rules that are there if they see a spark in students. And I think it's also happening now in India, but yeah, a lot more happens that in US.
Yeah, I agree. It's in their DNA that they are born to
Yes.
like go after something. They're born to hustle. Like some places have those things in their DNA, like where you have a certain kind of mindset, influence, structure around your body, anything based on where you live, right? Like, so a lot of people, like I recently heard someone say, like a really big speaker or something on a podcast or something, that your zip code in today's times where you live matters only because of this reason, that what opportunities you're going to get, what kind of mindset you're going to have is largely determined right from the day you're born and where you're born. Like certain things are going to be out of question. So
I would say 10 years before, I think that was very relevant. Now, because of again, now we are truly in the globalized world where we are exposed to that particular part, right? India, imagine the kind of startup environment that has been created now. So I would say that now, at least that is less relevant than it was 10 years before. 10 years before, I completely agree. I think I never got exposed to uh, things like entrepreneur, that you can start your own business without investment. All that kind of concepts were very alien to me or to many of us who were not exposed to that kind of thought process. And now I feel that the kids now who are in that particular league, they see that particular startup culture. They know that this is how they can really grow, and they don't need any money or no family surname or no zip codes to really grow.
True, agree. I completely agree with that. That I get where that person's coming from what he's saying, but I completely agree with you that now in today's times, if you have a certain passion for something, and if you show that caliber, like how you pursued, like you called them multiple times until you got it. So if you do that, like irrespective of where you are, you're gonna like get where you want to go. Like
Yes.
Talk to me about like how did, once you finished your masters, like how did the idea of your current company come to you, and talk to me about like how did that journey begin?
So honestly, if you're an international student in the US, right, that's one of the worst thing. It's kind of, you have to follow the Darwin theory of survival of the fittest.
Okay.
And it starts from day one you enter in US. Of course, about the cultural shock that you get, that's a different conversation. You don't have the time to cope up with that particular piece, but you have a time clock that, okay, as soon as you graduate, you have this many years to apply for your H1. It's a lottery system. So there are like 400,000, which is like 4 lakh people who apply every year, and there is like 20,000, 30,000, and then you get, if you're a master, then you get 65,000 overall to get into that particular lottery. So it's literally a lottery system. So
Yeah.
you know that you have to apply multiple times if you're not lucky and all that kind of thing. So that is something that you just want to get that opportunity, the first opportunity they get. So there is no game plan in that regard. It's like you get what you have and you
Yeah.
just take it. And it's not easy because this was my time when I kind of was graduating. US was slowly coming up from the 2008 debacle that happened, the whole economic crisis that happened. So it was just coming up. It was in 2010, 2011 that it started getting it. So I came here in 2012. So it was not, the economy was not that great at that point of time. So I was kind of trying everything that I can do. I was applying anywhere I can get in. So this was something that I was literally on LinkedIn. I was sending messages to everybody that I want to learn from you. I just help me out. And one of the lady just replied back, and we were having what we call as informational interviews, where it's more of like conversations. And she liked it. And then she said that, I have this particular role for you, because I feel that you would be really very good in that. So that just drove me to this Q Pharma company. Honestly, it was Q Pharma. It's very, very interesting. It was called Q Pharma.
So what was the company involved in? What was your role in the company? Talk to me about that.
Yes, it was an internship that I did, right? So this was more of like when I started doing internships. So the first internship that I did, which is honestly very important point, where it was more of like where I did it for free because I wanted to understand the financial side. So this was more of an angel investor who would hear students pitching their ideas, and he
Okay.
would decide whether he wants to invest it or not. And that was my first time that I would really understand that, oh, there is something called angel investors. That, oh, you can get money like that. You can pitch your idea and you can get money out of it. And this was something that I was on the other side of the table. So that was really good because now I have to hear these people, create SWOT analysis and give it to that guy, and he would decide on that particular, of course, not, it was not relying on just me, but I
Yeah.
was part of that conversation. So
Yeah.
that just excited me so much. That was like my first spark of starting something of my own, where I came to know that, you know what, I don't need any money of my own. I can use somebody else's money to fulfill my dream, which was like, it was a dream come true kind of a scenario for me. And then, of course, the survival started where I started. Of course, you need to have that particular job to start doing it. And that's where I did this whole LinkedIn kind of an approach, spoke with this particular lady, and joined called a company called Q Pharma as a junior project manager.
Okay.
It was a company who helped pharma companies to launch their products, so right from marketing, regulatory affairs, all the different perspective. And I was managing different projects. So I was really there to just pick up some processes and create a very good Gantt charts and this all that kind of concepts. But again, I had this particular issue, but I think now I cannot say that issue. But this was my first day at that particular company, and it was a town hall, and they were announcing, it was a small company, so it was a town hall where we were around 100 people, and that guy's like literally stood up and said that we got this particular project. He was a very young guy. He said that we got this particular project in China. It's about regulatory affairs, and he started talking a lot about it. And I just put my hand up. I had this issue, you know that. So it's like, whatever you're talking is not making sense, because in China, the regulatory affairs is very difficult. So this is how we have to do it. And I thought that that guy was more of an account manager or something like that. So I was fine to say that. Later on, I came to know that he was the CEO of the company, and I interjected him in a town hall, which is not the normal norm. But again, the difference, right? Like,
you had to
yeah,
go ahead and do it, and
somehow I don't know what the, if I, again, as I said, some of the things I have done, if I recollect myself, I feel that I would have never done that now, but I did it. But he gave me the opportunity to lead that particular project. So what I was being asked to do, or what I was hired to do, became completely non-relevant, because I did something which he got very excited that somebody on his first day can literally give this kind of information. So he made me the lead of that project. So I traveled China, I traveled Japan. This was a project with Pfizer. So my first project landed on me being very rebellious, on which is my trend. But yeah, so that was something. But I would tell students like this is something that you need to do that particular more often. You have to be rebellious, and it's not in a bad way. You
Yeah.
have to be rebellious in way what you feel, what is your passion. Just follow it rigorously, and whatever you believe in, be opinionated, right? Like you cannot be always diplomatic.
Right.
Uh, you have to be opinionated about what you feel.
Like, if you want to grow and if you want to learn, if you don't speak up, how are you going to know if you what you were thinking was right or wrong? Which
Yes.
also like is something that we haven't been encouraged in the country. Like, that's why not many people do it. With some people it comes naturally, and they get the brunt of it every time, and they're looked upon as like some bad person, but me included in that. But no complaints, no like that, like you have to be like that to learn something new and to grow, and to, like I said, find out if what you were thinking about was.
Yes. I think in India, I would say there are a lot more people like that in terms of not in the education system, but overall, if you see, they're very rebellious people in terms of that they would not follow protocols. I think
Because
the
they're
reason we
suppressed,
shine, and
because they're
sorry,
suppressed no, since because they're suppressed no since so many years.
yes,
When you see
exactly. And it's also exactly, I feel that Darwin literally saw India and talk about the survival of the fittest, because we really believe in that particular part and we live our life like that. Like it's like as soon as you get out of your house, it's about surviving, like right through going through the traffic or through the whole portion of it. Right, it's about if you have to adapt so much. You have to be so smart about it. It's like what we call a street smartness.
yeah.
And that's why we succeed in US, right? Because in US everything is about protocols, rules. But as soon as they see this kind of people, they love them. They start, and that's why we are seeing so many CEOs now
Yeah.
of pharma
Right.
companies being an Indian, because we are habituated to do that. And this is a country where you get appreciated about it.
And I think it's our time to shine now, because all the things that
I
were
think
holding us back are no longer holding us back. So I feel like
no.
it's our time to shine, and that's why we are
I think
seeing.
yeah, we are already doing it here. We are the brightest spot. Even in India, I'm not saying US. India is the brightest spot right now in the economy also, right? IMF just published the article where they're saying that the chances for recession in US is zero. Sorry, in India is zero, while in US is 65%, Canada is 60%, UK is 85%. So all the growing economies, they have high inflation, huge chances of recessions, while India is the shining spot in this dark
Yeah.
age. So I would say this is the era of India.
Talk to me about, like, so now you're working at this big firm, like
Small form, but yes.
small firm, but like a tech firm where your
Yeah.
ideas are appreciated, everything is going well. So talk to
Yeah.
me about, like, what next? Like, how did you reach? Like, how did you start your own company? What happened in between? Like, what were the challenges you faced? And talk to me about all of that.
Yep. So basically, Q Pharma was doing very well, and there was another company called Viva. It's one of the fastest growing companies. So if does not know, just please research about them. It's one of the fastest growing tech company. So they bought us, and I was part of the acquisition. I went to Viva, but again, the way in my DNA, I cannot work for big firms. I have to start from scratch. So within 6 months, I left Viva, and then I had multiple options. Of course, I got an opportunity with McKinsey. I got an opportunity with the IBM Watson. They wanted to have me to start their certain market access business on the McKinsey side of the things, and
Right.
on the IBM side, they wanted to get into this whole KOL mapping that I was doing at Q Pharma. But I think, and again, this is something that I will tell again, whoever is listening, right? Like this was where I created a goal, which was more of a dream. But I don't like something to be called as dream, because you always feel that dream is something that you don't achieve, you just enjoy. So that's why I like to call it as goal. So my goal was always about the Forbes 30 under 30 or top 100 healthcare leader and all that kind of thing. And that too in a very early stage, right? And again, as I said, this were like all dreams, but I called it as goal. But because I wanted to achieve that, I knew that I cannot do that when I will be with, let's say, one of the 10,000 in McKinsey or one in the 100,000 in IBM.
Yes.
So I wanted to do something where I know that if I do this, especially when I start something of my own, that will make a huge difference. But of course, you have limitations with H-1B visas and all the other X factors that you always have with US. So I pitched my idea to my current CEO, who was the CEO of Q Pharma, about this whole creating this solution. And I had this idea about how we can take some of this innovative things that happens in the other industry and put it in pharma. He didn't understand it, but he was like, again, very appreciative about the passion that I showed as a somebody in 20s. So he's like, you know what, I will invest this much money in you and see what you can do, and just be my employee, and we will see whether it works out or not. So that started my journey of creating a particular solution, being part of Q Pharma. But yeah, it was a huge risk that I took at that point of time. But I had that particular goal. Yeah, of course, it would have gone both the ways. As I said, now if I see the probabilities was not even 1% or 99%. But it was something that I wanted to go for. And it helped me. I was nominated for Forbes 30 under 30. I got top 100 healthcare leader, all of that. But I would say that it was more of just the overall passion that I had to do something. And that's why I tell kids, and again, I'm kind of repeating it, but please don't call it dream, call it as a goal. True. Because goals are achievable. Dreams are always you don't go for it. You always feel that that's like a distant.
I agree with that, because I also look at it like that. Like when I think of things as a goal rather than a dream is something, when you dream of something, you're like, oh, it's like you said, it's distant and it might happen one day. But goals are something that you have to go and make happen. Like, they don't just happen. You have to follow a process, make a system, and, find out what are the steps you need to take to reach there. So I completely agree with that. And kudos to the CEO of this company, this mentor,
yes,
you can call it, that he showed so much faith and trust in you, which is like so rare to find in those times, in India especially, but abroad especially, people are like that. But still, trusting, taking a bet on an Indian kid, young kid, and trusting his mindset, his vision, and spotting something in you, seeing something in you, and believing in it. That this person has some fire and will deliver.
I completely agree, because the reason that surprises me more right now is that he didn't even understand what I was talking about. So he was not an expert in that particular field. So he literally bet on something that he was just attracted to the kind of passion that I showed and the audacity, because he knew that I got opportunities at different companies that are way bigger. But I didn't opt it for it, and I'm coming and in a kind of taking that particular risk. So he was anyways and I would agree that he is a guy who really believes in people rather than processes. So that was one of the things that I was fortunate enough to get. His name is Patrick Dan Boyer. So I was fortunate to have him as my mentor throughout.
Yeah. It's amazing. I think like you told me the last time when we spoke that he's no more. So
yeah, he passed away last year during COVID. So yeah, it's a sad part of it. But again, that's another part, right? So his daughter works in Q Pharma as a manager, and I'm the managing director of the company. So that shows that there are the ethics. At some point of time, that's one thing that I really feel that we need to, as an Indian community, we need to get that in India is you don't need to always run it on a family basis, right? You cannot have that. It has to be on merit base. And I know with this whole political situation, it is becoming more about like that discussion is becoming a lot more relevant. But in the business community, I still feel I was disappointed with some of the decisions, especially some of my idols like Narayan Murthy or some of them, where I felt that they would take that kind of very aggressive decision of not appointing their kids to directly to that particular level. But I still saw that particular point. And again, that's more of an Indian culture, which is fine. But that's one thing that I really appreciate about you, is it's not, even if after he passed away, his daughter is still a manager. She's part of the trust, but she does not have any decision making in the company beyond being a manager. So that shows that even after passing away, he has created a trust where, of course, the money goes to the family, but the entire functioning is done by people who has grew the company, and he's a single owner, so there is no partners. It's not a public company.
That's
So it's a
amazing.
private company owned by one person, and still he is able to create a will where it will be always merit based.
But that is so lovely and commendable, and that shows such a solid mindset of this person who believes that, who keeps work and who keeps his passion and dedication
Person, but
above.
I would say that's very very common in US. Just imagine any big companies, right from Apple to Google to any of these big companies, Amazon. You don't see any of their kids working in that firm. Working also, I'm just saying, forget about any
But
position,
they don't need
but
to.
they don't even
Come
work.
on. They don't need
No,
to.
but I'm just saying that still, of course, they would love to become
Yeah.
billionaires,
I
right?
get
So
it.
they
I
are
get
not billionaires right now.
it.
They're
Yeah.
still millionaires. Like they are not like their parents that they're billionaires.
Yeah.
So, but they
I get
don't join the firms. They don't get that particular roles. Where we see in India that happening a lot more. That's one thing that I would love to say that we need to change as a mindset. Everything else is coming, which is so amazing. We are seeing so many amazing startups, unicorns growing, but one culture like that where you don't need to be family based, like if it you they have to earn it, that's it.
Yeah.
It's really very injustice because there are always different people who have worked with you along the way to start that particular company. So now you're not appreciating the 20-25 years somebody has spent to grow that company, and you're just giving it to somebody because they were born to. Yeah, it feels so colonial, which is, yeah, it's now in nowadays it feels very colonial that you
Yeah.
cannot have that. You have to get out of this kings and queens of the world.
And honestly, also, when you build something, like I'm very, when we talk about these things, I don't know if you know this guy, Ray Dalio from Bridgewater
Okay.
Associates. You've heard of him?
Yes.
Yeah, he's
Yes.
written a brilliant book called Principles, Life and Work. And if you haven't read it, that's the one book I recommend everyone to read. It's the best book ever. And he talks about this thing. He talks about idea meritocracy and, like everything merit based, basically, and how to, like, why to follow that and how to do that, basically. So that's interesting. Talk to me about, like, can you give me like an overview of your company, like Neolithic?
Yep.
What are you guys doing right now? What are the products and services that you offer?
Yeah. So basically, as I said, that this the idea that I pitched was more of like how we see in this school, like if again we have seen Bond movies and we have seen that kind of FBI movies, right? So where they can show how criminals are connected with each other based on some, like they've done bombs, like build bombs together, or they've worked in some terrorist organization together. So they build connections between people and understand that how each of the other one is influencing. So this was the same concept that I wanted to bring it in US. And again, let me explain how US pharma works, right? Because it's very different from India, right? India, we have mostly all the generic products, right? So it's kind of where you don't need to market the therapy itself, you're marketing the brand because you want more prescription. So it's very different. It's like a very low level conversation in terms of like, oh, please prescribe my product, right? That's what our MR does.
Yeah.
But in US, it's most about educating the medical community about a completely new molecule that came into the picture because of the research, and it's a life-saving drug. But now you have to educate them that, okay, you know what, this is a completely new class of drug.
Yeah.
And this is how the mechanism of action is working. So that's a very deep conversation that you need to have, and then you need to educate the entire world about it. So you need brand ambassadors, right? And you, of course, in pharma, you don't have like Michael Jordan picking up the Nike shoes and say, "Oh, buy that shoes," right? It has to be very, very educational and very
Evidence-based,
intellectual.
very evidence based, basically.
Exactly, and you don't have one person like that. Like you have many who is ruling that community. So usually US pharma spends millions and millions of dollars, and I'm telling you millions, meaning like literally for every single product launch, they usually their particular budget for marketing is right from 800 million to 1.2 billion dollars, and I'm not including even the clinical trials. So you're talking about just in Indian terms 6,000 or 7,000 crores. That's their spend that they have to do in just marketing. So imagine the burden of that happening overall. So what my thought was to how to help them to really understand which experts they should be focusing on, so that they don't have to really connect with this 20,000, 40,000 HCPs throughout the world, they can narrow it down to top few who can really communicate that effectively. So we literally took that codes that we had that FBI was using. It's the same code base. And we took that and we built that kind of network, what we call as neural networks, of how physicians are connected to each other, and we find out who are the top experts. So rather than going to the every nth doctor, you find out who are that particular top-notch people in their communities that can communicate that message, and that message will go down to the roots or to all the HCPs on the ground.
Right.
And that was the whole idea of how pharma can make very effective decision by just seeing one particular software or application, and they can just click like, okay, I want to know who is the top 70, 100, 200 people I want to focus on that can help me connect with 12,000, 20,000 HCPs in a go. So that was the whole idea that we created.
Efficiency of the marketing spend that you are making.
Yes.
Like, it increased spending that much, the efficiency that you expect,
yes,
going to be like increased 10 folds, 20 folds if you go by your method, like your tech.
Yes. So the whole idea was to decrease that particular spend for pharma so that they can pass on that particular, I would say, of course, the message will go down to a lot more HCPs. So we are very proud that one of the COVID treatment, we were part of that entire launch for COVID treatment. And that is where we saw the real impact of what we did, because this was something where we wanted to make sure that most of the HCPs receive that information as fast as possible, because we had in limited time, and the company was one of the topmost company in the world, and they wanted to reach to maximum number of HCPs, but time was a factor. So in that place, we saw that the efficiency, not just in terms of saving money, but even reaching out to more number of HCPs and convincing them, and then that treatment reaching out to maximum number of patients so that they can get that life-saving treatment in no time. So that was, I would say, that was one of the biggest impact that we saw with our product happening. And that's how we started. And then Neolitica, this is something that we started in 2021, where we saw this AI and analytics growing a lot. And this was another time where I saw that data analytics is something that in pharma, we are not doing that effectively. So we branched out into, rather than just focusing on this one product, we branched out to do many of this kind of analysis, which was very important. So we are also doing a lot of work in rare diseases like hemophilia, NF1, HPP, where there are very few patients. But what happens is, because doctors are not educated, they don't know how to treat these patients. So they usually get misdiagnosed because it's so rare that physicians are not able to identify them correctly. And now pharma company, because they have the product, they want to educate this particular HCPs or physicians about this particular disease and tell them that there is a treatment for it. So now we follow the entire patient journey to see how these patients were misdiagnosed by which HCPs throughout USA and globally. And then we say, okay, you know what, please educate this physician groups, because they are getting a lot of this kind of patients because of the geographical location, but they're misdiagnosing them. And instead of diagnosing them with correctly in the first or second interaction, they're doing it in 14th interaction. So for 1.5 years, these patients are not getting the right treatment.
And the disease.
So now pharma. Exactly.
And they suffer. And, can you give me a particular example of a particular disease or a set of people, who have like...
We recently did for Wilson disease. So that's it's a 1 in 100,000 kind of a patient that you will have it. And this is something that we wanted to understand, that particular part of how that particular process flows. So we saw, we literally took a subset of just 160 patients, and we follow entirely how they are going from a primary physician, how they're being referred to one primary physician to another primary physician, to wrong specialties, because they're not getting identified that, okay, this needs to get to the right specialties. So they are referred to different like neurologists and this and that, which are all wrong specialties. And we saw that 80% of the patients, when we extrapolated that the analysis, we saw that 80% of the patients are wrongly diagnosing for first 4 interactions. That too in US, forget about India or any of the developing countries where I cannot even imagine.
Like you said, Wilson's disease, right?
Yes, it's Wilson disease.
What are they diagnosed for instead of that?
It's basically a neurological problem, but it's mainly where there are a lot of adults who are struggling a lot in that particular part. So it's kind of what it goes misdiagnosed with copper metabolism, and there are a lot of other factors that gets into it, right? So it's more of a condition that is together,
Yeah.
The gastro and the whole portion of it. So it's a
Yeah.
combination of multiple things.
Yeah.
The hepatologist and
Yeah. Because nowadays even gut microbiome and that is also getting too much of emphasis and importance. So I feel like
yes,
everybody is just focusing on that the first thing, like
yes,
for anything.
yes. Exactly. So that's where we understood that, you know what, this is where we need to do the patient journey analysis to identify the right specialist that they need to go into. And we educated, first of all, we let pharma companies know that these are the specialties, because what happens is that pharma companies usually when they're launching a product, they always feel that these are the specialties that I need to focus on. And we told them that, you know what, in this kind of cases, you don't need to, because the problem happens is that they go to wrong specialties. So first you have to educate the wrong specialties that this is what is happening, and so that they can refer it to the right specialists.
Yeah.
Right. So that was where we were seeing a lot of this kind of problems happening. And yeah, so this has, like, whether it's hemophilia or Wilson disease or NF1, HPP. So we have been working on many of this kind of rare diseases where we are helping. I think it's a win-win situation, because clients are getting where to focus on, and the patients are getting also the advantage of where we are educating the physicians to diagnose it correctly.
Yeah. I feel like this particular segment and sector seems very interesting to me, rather than like the drug sector, because I feel like this has a lot of scope if done rightly, and if done ethically and fairly using the tech. It will create a very big revolution. And
oh yeah, for sure, there is no question. I think, again, just taking example of like Wilson, right? It's a genetic disorder, right? So that's a problem where it happens, right? But usually it becomes, when you talk about genetic, it becomes very difficult to understand who will be the person who would resolve it. But because of the symptoms, they get referred to multiple, because there are multiple symptoms. It's like it impacts your liver, it impacts your brain, eyes, a lot of factors. So there are a lot of chances to misdiagnose it and keep on sending it to different specialties because of not understanding what the problem is, right? And that's where we started doing this kind of activities and this kind of analysis. And AI is, it's not just pharma, right? Like, I don't know if I just read another article where this was the first time AI identified a new planet in an hour.
Yeah,
which scientists has not done for years. AI with the algorithm did it in 1 hour. When they applied that algorithm, they were able to identify a new planet. So imagine the kind of report. This is just to understand the level of the AI and the kind of complexity it can solve. If it does that, imagine what we can do on the pharma or the healthcare side of the things.
Yeah. I want to go back once to the misdiagnosis part. So technically, like, how is the tech that you are working on, the AI, is letting you know that this person has been misdiagnosed and this is their actual diagnosis and this is what the next steps should be? Like, how is... I'm curious to know that. Like, how is that?
I think the very interesting part about US is that we have electronic medical record. So what happens is that in India, you cannot track prescriptions or you cannot track claims, right? So basically, let's say if I go to a doctor, it's a handwritten prescription, which is not digitalized.
Right.
Things are changing, but that's not there. In the US, it's all digitalized. So any particular patient who goes to a particular doctor, they have to file a claim because everything is covered by insurance. So they know that what they were diagnosed with, what are their symptoms, and what they were prescribed. Right. So now we get millions and millions of this claims data from data sources, and we analyze the entire claim, all these claims. So that's where the neural network and the algorithms gets into the picture, right? Where now we are following every single patient because we have a common patient ID. Because of HIPAA compliance, we will not know the information of the patients now, but we have a patient ID. So now I can follow that in 2018, this particular patient went to this particular doctor, went to this doctor, went to this doctor. So now whoever was diagnosed with Wilson disease right now, I can follow their entire patient journey right back to what they did last 5 years and follow the whole thing that happened. So what were the procedures? What were the tests that were done? Who were the HCPs or physicians that were involved? And I follow the whole journey and say, okay, you know what? This geography struggled a lot, while this geographies did really good. And it's very surprising when you analyze this data. You know that, you know what, this is a lot more information that you can really improve the entire patient care.
Yeah.
Which you cannot imagine doing it without data, right? Without analyzing the data, it was so difficult to do it. But now it's so easy because now we were literally we were able to target even by geographies where we were able to tell clients that, you know what, focus on West Coast, where they were not able to diagnose correctly, while East Coast is doing really good job. Even the primary physicians were able to identify that correctly, while the West Coast is not. Where in Europe, the disease awareness is much higher, but it's not that much into certain. EU5 is good, but there are certain European countries where they are still struggling to understand this particular disease, right? So it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, I get it. I agree with that, and I've also heard these on some podcasts, like I think Ray Dalio spoke about it, or I don't know who spoke about it. I think Bill Gates or someone, but somebody said that diagnostics, once if we get that right, I think like that is like the first step, right? So everything is based and everything is dependent upon that diagnosis. So if we have figured out a way and created tech and brought in AI to solve that problem, then that is like solving like the base level problem, which can like prevent like all these things where you get these we used to study about it, the drug intolerances and everything, because it's misdiagnosed and all of that. You don't have to get into all of that, or you were saved from all of that if this one step we can figure it out, right? So this is like huge.
Not only that, now this is going even honestly, what happened, what COVID, I know there were a lot of bad things, and again, there is nothing wrong in, like, it was really bad. But I always like to see positive out of something that was happening, that happened so bad. So I felt COVID revolutionized the way our thought process was, right? From working remotely, trusting people, to even pharma companies adopting that they need to change. It was a wake-up call for pharma, especially the healthcare industry, where they were not adopting to new innovations, and they were holding it to a lot to that particular part. And now they have grown so well. Is where they started adopting. We were just doing that particular. So one of our clients, they adopted AI, and usually you have to select a particular compound to develop, and it usually takes around 7 to 8 years to a preclinical work that they have to do it. But now, based on certain data points, they, instead of 7 years, they were able to identify that particular compound from huge number of other compounds in 6 months. So they reduced that 7 year of research to 6 months. Imagine the kind of time saving, energy saving, and money saving that happens in that particular process. Like how you can adopt to that.
Yeah, true. And even trauma saving, right? Because these are things like, families, like diseases and, hospitals and families, they also it also creates a lot of trauma for the people who go through it. So people can be saved from that as well. And
the targeted therapies in oncology, as like before chemotherapy, you always have this particular hair goes away and all that. Like chemotherapies are bad for your body. Now we have come up with targeted therapy, and again, not now, it has been a long time now, the targeted therapies, but it keeps on developing. So now less and less patients have to go to the chemotherapies, right? Like it's targeted therapy. It focuses on, especially for malignant ones, you focus on only that particular benign one, you focus on only that area, and you can solve that particular problem. So I feel that there is a lot of advancement that makes a huge difference, and AI is going to make a huge impact in overall progress of how we are going to see the day-to-day world.
Right, right. I think my next question was going to be like, how do you keep up with the trends and advancements? But I think you're keeping up pretty well. So I think you've answered that question. And also, like, what are the
Yeah,
specific therapeutic areas that you're working on? I think that also you've answered, that you're mainly
yeah.
focused on diagnostics, which is
So
like
I
great.
think the way the solution that we have created is not specific to one therapeutic area, and that's the beauty of it. It goes beyond multiple therapeutic area. Especially as I said, like hematology and oncology is something we have a lot of our clients on that particular part, but of course we work on many of the rare diseases as I've mentioned. Like we go through multiple rare diseases. So I think it's a wide portfolio in that terms of which therapeutic area we focus on. And to answer your question, I just wanted to make sure that uh, regarding how I keep up about the trends, right? So I'm very different, right? Like I know people usually read a lot of books, and again I'm all for it. But now I feel that with this fast growing, the way we are growing, we have so much less time. I feel that it's about reading amazing articles rather than reading books because they're lengthy. And again, I'm not saying there are like amazing book like Built to Last, Good to Great by Jim Collins. Like I would say any entrepreneur, they do like so much of research. He has like 5 PhD people doing research. So that kind of books, of course, you really have to read it throughout. But uh, articles are something that I feel it's amazing. Business Insiders, there are so many good ones. Forbes, all of them writing amazing articles. Get subscription to that. It helps a lot to get updated, and I also feel that once you get like recognized worldwide, you get network. So I also like I'm part of many of the groups where they have discussions to the next generation of how things are happening. So that yeah, so that usually helps out a lot. The network is it helps
True.
out a lot. So I would say that build your network wisely. Go for right people, connect with right people, and not just to gain something, it's just to gain knowledge.
What's your, like, you seem pretty optimistic. So I was going to ask you this question. So I'll ask you, but you seem pretty optimistic. Like there are people like, on podcasts and stuff, we've heard that there are some people who have gone on and publicly raised fingers and pointed at pharma companies for, not being so ethical, and especially in the US. So how do you look at that? Like, what is happening there? What is your point? I'm sure you are hearing these things. I'm sure you are aware of.
Yes.
So what is your
So
take?
honestly, I built a solution in between, and honestly, it's still there. So we had created a solution called TI Risk, which is I don't know if you heard about opioid crisis in US. This
Yeah.
is where some of the pharma companies literally did a really bad job because of the marketing. Uh, Opioid became a big problem where they were
Yeah.
prescribing opioids, which was only allowed for the indication for last stages of on cancer, and they were prescribing it with toothache. They were like they reach out to dentists and many of these kind of physicians where it was not needed, and people got addicted to it. So we created a particular program or a solution where we identified that kind of bad physicians, again following the same process of data and identifying. So what we did is that we identified bad patients. So patients who are using the same prescription and getting their prescription fulfilled by multiple pharmacies. They are paying cash, and then we followed that bad patients and narrow it down or aggregate it on a physician level, that which are the physicians who are seeing such kind of patients who are bad because they were doing it. And we created a list of physicians that were really bad and submitted that to FDA.
Yeah.
And they rated them. And they so yes, I would say that any particular industry that you take, there are always bad things happening. I think it's about you taking some steps to find out a solution to stop it, right? So I would say imagine the kind of advancement that we had in pharma or in terms of medicine, right? That was all possible because of pharma companies spending so much of money in it, right? So I would say that there I have seen people working day and nights to get that particular or to really launch the products. So I would not really blame or generalize that particular part, but as in every industry there are places where or there are companies who are doing bad work, and you have to get acquainted to it and start just fighting it.
I agree, and I can agree with the point that, of course, there are bad people in any industry, and yeah, but yeah, the major pharma companies putting so much money in the marketing, And like you said, even more than the clinical trials, or like equal amount than the clinical trials. So hope that they're doing it for the better, and they are doing it.
I want to use a term from the West Wing. It's my favorite series, the West Wing.
Okay.
So this was an episode where they were conversation was happening that why pharma companies are so bad, especially for South Africa. They wanted to provide HIV drugs, and they were giving it for a lot of money and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
So there is one line that they have said that somebody argued that the to create the cost of manufacturing that pill is just $10. Why are you charging so much of money? So the gentleman said is that the second pill costs $15. The first pill cost millions of dollars to create that first pill. And so don't think about the second pill. The first pill to manufacture or to get that first pill in the market, it costs billions of dollars. That's why you get the second pill in $10 or $15. But you have to come up with that. How are you going to justify that hundred billions of dollars that you spend? So that's what it is.
I get it. They've come up with good reasoning. I appreciate that. And nice that you're optimistic, and great. And hopefully, like, it's used for the better and people can benefit from it. And that's the long-term goal and everything. So talk to me about, like, what is the advice that you would give to someone who's like probably in their 12th standard, watching this, listening to this, doesn't know what to do, probably wants to enter pharma in the US, or maybe wants to just go to study in the US. Like, you can, like, what is the education system, what should they expect, and like, talk to me about all of that.
I would say challenge the conventional wisdom, right? And what I mean by that is just challenge the norms that you always have, right? Like, don't, it's not that you have to be an MR or you have to go into pharma. Or try to read a lot about what's happening in the industry. Where are the gaps, right? The idea about is talk about any other companies that have gone so big is because they have understood the gaps in the industry, or excuse me, the users, and they found out that particular gap. So I would say personally that from my experience that I have is, I think I mentioned before, is uh, pharma is struggling to adopt new technologies, and there is a high time that they have to do it. And I'm talking not just pharma, but overall the healthcare system, whether you talk about hospitals, payers, uh, pharmaceutical industry, all of them. I usually use pharma is because they
Yeah.
hold a lot more value and power. But we are seeing a lot more challenge that pharma is having right now in adopting new technologies. And that's where I would say professionals that are pharmacy background who understands not just pharmacy, but if we can get more expertise on the other side of the aisle, whether it's data analytics, whether it's AI, and it's not alien. I think we feel that, oh, you have to do computer science to understand that particular part. It's not. You don't have to code yourself.
Yeah.
You need to just guide the ones that are doing it in a better way, but you need to understand their language to do that particular part. So it's more of like getting that experience, understanding that particular part, so that you can drive them to the place that you want them to be there. I think that's going to be the crux of it. It's always going to be now a hybrid model, which is not core pharma, which is not business only. Like, we started this combining business with everything. That was the hybrid that started in India, which is still going on. Do MBA in everything, engineering MBA, pharma MBA, and everything is MBA, right?
Yeah.
I think it's not going to work that much now, because everybody has understood that MBA, of course, it's very important, but it's more about how you become more professional and more do case studies and all that, which is now becoming much more easier in terms of accessing. I think it's going to be now you need to have two major expertise, which are core degrees that we were having, but now you have that hybrid of that, which is going to be the next step for. So if you're doing it, certifications are the place where I would go. So do a core degree, but then try to do some certifications in data analytics, do some certifications in AI, do some certifications in any of the other fields. Because that is where you're going to see a lot more growth, a lot more value, because you're going to create niche. Even economies are not going to, even if the economy is going to go down, your jobs are going to be saved, or whatever you're trying to pursue. Even building a business like what I did, because now you understand it. Now you can really build with only one few software developers working with you, you can develop a business. Because I remember we had servers that we had to buy and put it in our basement to do that. It's so much expensive now. It's so easy where you can just do AWS, Amazon Web Services, and you just scale it up. Now, unless you understand that particular perspective and have the hybrid understanding, I think that is going to be the future.
Right, right, right. I agree. I agree. That's a very good point. And students nowadays have gotten smarter in general. But I think it's a very good point to keep in mind for parents, for students who are aspiring to go to the US to study, and, what to pick. Like, because it's such a big topic, what to study, what to pick. And this is a very good solution to that problem that you're giving. That don't just pick one thing. Who said that you need to pick one thing? Just pick 2-3 things, and like one will click, and one will be dependent on the other, and it will take you, like, sometimes this will be helpful, sometimes that will be helpful. So don't pick one thing.
If you're coming to US, please don't come for bachelors. I think it's very expensive. I feel in India the bachelors are really good. They give you a lot of theoretical knowledge, which is good at that age. US, along with benefits, it has also its con, some of the downside of it. So I would say doing masters in US is amazing. You get a lot of opportunities, a lot of exposure, a lot of application of your theoretical knowledge into this field, and it gives you exposure of what to do. For me, data analysis was not an option, or I didn't know about it until I applied that and started joining companies or internships where I got that exposure, and I understood that that's a niche that I have. So that's another part, that don't follow because it's happening or I'm seeing it. It's also, do you have that niche about it, right? I have guided some of the students recently for UI UX, because they have this niche about interior designing or certain things. But of course, you don't want to go to the civil engineering side of the things. Then apply that kind of knowledge or that finesse in doing apps. The entire world is going to be apps now. So how to make apps beautiful and more user-friendly is going to be your particular fine spot. So I think the way the world is going, that's what you need to focus on.
True. Very well said. I'm sure people are going to get so much value out of your experience and, your wisdom and your words and everything that you have been through and the challenges that you faced. So great. Now we'll move to a little bit more fun segment, which is called Curious Quick 5. Are you ready? Let's start. It's going to be a little bit. So what's the one thing that you're curious about apart from data science and pharma and analytics and all of that stuff? Like something different.
Oh, so nothing professional?
No. Something that's very like out of the blue different.
The language of kids, newborns.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Love
so
that.
Their expressions, their patterns, they understand so well. It's so interesting to just analyze, like just to see what are they trying to communicate with different ways. So I'm very curious about some of the things, especially, of course, last few months have been on that particular part.
Yeah. And they're very sharp. They pick up on things. So very interesting. Very, very interesting. What's the one person you're curious about? Who's the one person?
Elon Musk.
Okay. Nice. Good answer. I like that.
That guy has...
he's
I'm very curious.
He's something else. He's superhuman.
I think I usually tell people that he's born 200, like he was a human who would born 200 years after, but he has just somehow something happened and he got born 200 years before. So his whole thought process, even people are criticizing it. People are criticizing him for Twitter, but the way things he's doing is very much making sense. He's making sense out of the books that he's seeing on Twitter. So I think people are not getting that what he's trying to do. It happened right from Tesla to SpaceX, everywhere. And even I think I don't know why this was like when we were getting interviewed for Forbes 30 under 30, all our new entrepreneurs, they were asking this question. And at that point of time, Elon Musk was not that known. This was, I'm talking about 2013, 16. So he was getting 85% of us said, who would you like to have as a mentor? It was Elon Musk, because that guy has some brilliance.
I feel like he's born exactly at the right time, because I love that I get to witness what he's doing and live in the times that he exists in, which is like a privilege. And, like it's an honor, like, to exist around people who are doing such great work. So I feel like he's born at the right time and everything. But I hope,
True.
people do misunderstand him and,
I
everything.
think he doesn't care. That's the best part.
Yeah. He knows what he's doing, and
Yeah.
he is going to do whatever he wants to do, and that's it. Like, that's the best. What's the one place you're curious to travel to?
I'm going to travel there, Alaska, just in September. So yes,
Nice. What's the one book or author you are curious about?
Jim Collins.
Okay. Can you
Yeah.
read any
So
book?
Jim Collins is basically the one who wrote Great to Built to Last,
Okay, yeah.
and then Good to Great. So he has been like one of the so he basically the way he does his books are not just what are his thoughts. He does all the research like a PhD thesis. So he has like PhD students who would work and research companies for several years, and they will understand the patterns, the decision making that happened, and then he will put everything in summary in context, and he will put it in a book. So
Very
if
interesting.
again, good to great if you're not ready, if you're a young entrepreneur or anybody, I think that's something that you just, I think most of them would know, but that's a book that it's like a Bible for us because it tells you why some companies is just stays good and doesn't become great,
Basically,
right? Like
pattern
the whole
recognition and following the decision making, which people, even Ray
amazing.
Dalio talks about it, that, if you
Yes,
follow dynasties and generations, and, there's a certain pattern
yes.
that keeps on following. So if you can learn from that, I think you will be able to create whatever people consider as big as, everything. So yeah, very nice. I hadn't heard about this book. I will definitely try to check it
Oh,
out.
yeah. Then you need to definitely. And honestly, on the other side of the thing, which is like series and all that, Aaron Sorkin.
Okay.
That's one person that I'm fat. So he did the West Wing, which is my favorite series, like my guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
And the second thing is the Newsroom. So both of them are made by him, and
Yes.
the way he built his characters and makes it so interesting. I've never seen somebody doing that beautifully.
Nice, interesting, and nice. I like that recommendation of series also. What's the one
Oh
tech
yes.
you're curious about, apart from any tech related to pharma or anything? But what's the one new tech you're curious about? Of course, it's AI related. It's going to be AI related because that's the upcoming trend. But like, what are you curious about specifically?
I think the application of neural networks in our day-to-day life. So just to let you know what are neural networks are based on all this AI that we are talking about. It's the idea is that how our neurons are working. That's the base that they are taking for any AI evolution, right? Uh, so I think neural networks were there for a long period of time, but now they're converting that into more of a human conversation. That ChatGPT is nothing but that. The algorithm behind that was already people were using. We use it. We call it eigenvector centrality. All of that. The neural networks are being used overall in the day-to-day life to create algorithms. But now the way they're converting it into way, it's more of the text, the speech kind of therapy part of it. That's very very interesting. So that's what I just want to see how the neural networks, apart from just on that part, how it can really become even on the visual side of the things,
Right.
where it can maybe create entire films
Yeah.
without any problem, right?
Yeah,
Like
I've
it's just
heard.
basically give them, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard, like, I heard it and I was like, damn, I need to get this because it says that, people don't need production to do podcasts and stuff. And I was like, I need,
Yeah.
like, what is this tech? Where is this tech? I
Yes,
need to
yes.
do. Right?
So it already creates images, it creates PowerPoint presentations now. The next jump is going to be, but that's where the neural network, I just want to see how it's going to apply it in different places. I think it's the sky is also not the limit anymore, because
Yeah, exactly.
again, as I said, in 1 hour we found out a new planet, which is
Yeah.
which was I was fascinated with that. So I think neural network to identify how the universe started, because I'm very curious about how the universe started and what's
Yeah,
beyond
be
the
interesting.
universe.
That would be
Yes.
very
So the Big Bang theory, or whatever it is, whatever started, whatever that's or what is the length of the universe?
It would be very interesting to see, like, I was just going to say, like, we think about, like to see that in a movie, kind of like the Big Bang Theory happening as a movie in front of us. And like,
I think that is still, yeah, that is far away. But again, what I'm curious would be more of identifying that,
Yeah.
whether God exists, of course, but of course, and again, I don't want to become on that
I don't think
atheist
AI
side
is
of the
to
things.
admit that God
About
exists.
identifying that when there was an extra natural force that created this. Is there a reason behind it, or how this? What is the length of the universe? I think even that is a big question that science does not have it, while religion has it. So that's where one has to really understand whether that can really be solved, whether science can go into that level where they can come up with facts to solve it.
But I
I'm
feel
really
like,
curious.
yeah, very interesting, and I'm very fascinated by that. You want to know the length of the universe, and that you know that religion has an answer to this. It's very interesting to me. I hadn't heard of this.
I think they claim, right? They claim that particular part. So if you read scripture, right, from Jainism or Hinduism, they have that particular part, right? So even there are so many religion. If you see even Judaism, they have what kind of length it is, right? And now science is kind of proving some of it, disproving some of it. So it's very controversial, right? And again, we can always say that science said at one point of time that Earth is flat, which they disprove later on. So there are many Einstein theories which were disproven before and now getting proven, or
Yeah.
both the sides, right? Black hole exists or not, right? Stephen Hawking's coming back and disproving some of the work of Einstein. So what my point is that that is one answer that we want to see whether AI can solve, right? That where it can really by factual way can say that, okay, this is what how the earth was created, how so many consequences happened, that how this kind of ultra intelligent organisms were created without any extra natural force. Whether Darwin was really true, or there was, it started with a microorganism and developed it, or whether this was a force that created it.
Right, right, right. Darwin, I don't know if I can argue with Darwin on that, or like I can question him. I feel like he might have been correct, or maybe we'll find out if AI comes up with something. But
Yes.
yeah, but to sum this up, like, like, what are your last thoughts and feelings on being on the podcast? And then I was thinking of quoting Einstein, but then that's for later. But then what are your last thoughts and feelings about the whole conversation that we had?
I think this is excellent. I think we, again, creative people like you are really helpful in that regards, because now this is another avenue where uh, people can really get a lot of knowledge from where they don't have access to them, right? Like there will be so many people who would be seeing this video, would be getting some knowledge from me where they didn't had access to me, or they didn't even knew me.
Yeah, learn from your
And
experiences, learn from
exactly,
others'
exactly.
experiences. Yeah, true.
Yes. So that is something, it's a great medium of connecting people and exchanging knowledge or experiences free of cost.
Yeah, yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's definitely huge, and it's something that's here to stay. And I'm very surprised that you've called me creative. I don't think of myself as a creative person, but thank you very much for that
I
compliment.
think anything that you're starting which is not normal, I feel it's creative. This is not normal.
Yeah,
Pharmacy student would do it, right? So
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
is creative. That you have gone beyond something that is not a normal thing to
And
do.
outside of that box that we've been talking
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I would say even it's beyond creative. It's more of thinking outside the box,
about.
of starting something, just connecting people.
Right, right. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I just wanted to quote that Einstein quote because we were talking about science and religion. That's
Yes.
a really nice quote by Einstein that I, stumbled across, and I've got read a lot of Einstein quotes, and he talks a lot about God, and he was a scientist, so that's very interesting that he does that. There's this quote where he says that the more I study science, the more I believe in God.
Yeah.
So
Because science cannot solve it, right? That's the idea. That's what I'm saying. When scientists are not able to solve that, when Oppenheimer created the nuclear bomb, he was very happy. But when it destructed so many people, that's where he said that Mahabharat, he took the inspiration to create that bomb from Mahabharat. But then he understood that, I now understand that when Sri Krishna says that I am the creator and I am the destructor of this universe, and he said that I never understood that particular sentence, but now after seeing that happening, I now understand that particular part. So yeah, as you know more and more of science, you believe that, yeah, it's not solving the questions that are posted. And you believe that there is an extra natural force, or what you call God, is there. So yes, that's what I want, the neural network or whatever it is, the next phase of science.
Very well said and very well put, the thought that you are trying to convey. And I completely agree with that. I back that completely. Thank you so much for taking the time and being on the podcast, sharing your experience, sharing your valuable insights and, like challenges or like tough things or whatever. And thank you for sharing that with us. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Shruti. It was a pleasure being on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye. Bye.